name is Kimberly Negron. I am the literacy coach at Bunch Park Elementary. Came to me and she said, okay, when are we going to start our next coaching cycle? So she actually was the one to initiate wanting another coaching cycle. So I went into her classroom for the first observation, and so what I noticed was the students and the teacher were working on completing a timeline. So the teacher started with showing the students how to pull the information from the characters' adolescence and combine all of those details to complete one portion of the summary frame. I believe it was the teacher and the student, and then the student with a peer. They took some additional information. They combined that information into completing the second portion of the summary frame, and then the teacher released the students to independently finish the remainder of the summary frame. The end product, she, as the students were working, she would walk around and she would tell the student, okay, you're missing a piece, you're missing a piece, you're missing a piece. So what should have been an independent practice became more of a guiding practice, peer support, teacher supported. Particular coaching cycle, we had decided that the standard would be assessment, and the indicator would be using pre-assessment, summative, and formative data to drive instruction. Double plan technique is very broad, and within it has multiple goals. So what stood out to me was goal number 4, which allows for a teacher to check for understanding. So that was an area that I thought the teacher needed support with, in that the students were not really fully being released as she had planned. So there are quite a few things that we came up with in terms of the expectation for the coaching cycle. So one, we wanted her to be able to develop formative assessments that are going to be meaningful. So that was number 1. So once we develop the formative assessment, we now want to come up with what are we going to do with the information once we collect it. So a tracker would be needed. So now, okay, what would that tracker look like? So that was developed. Then after that, we decide, okay, we need some exemplars. When they complete the formative assessment, what should it look like? What would be an ideal response? What are acceptable responses if it was something that was an open response question, let's say? So there was no one way that they would have to say it, but there are varying ways that they may be able to say the same thing. So what's acceptable? We've been able to ensure that our questions have distracting answers, which would provide meaning to, or give meaning to, our discussions for those students who select those as answer choices. So another look for is, now that we have the data collected, what are we going to do with it? So the analysis of it, and then making a decision as to what's going to be done moving forward. The modeling process was, I'd say, pretty easy, in that I've had the opportunity to work with other teachers in which we have developed formative assessments, and I've modeled for them how to track data. So it's very easy when I model for someone, or even when I'm supporting teachers, I have a running record as well. So I can take those same running records that I might have used with another teacher, and then I can bring that into as evidence of what I've done in the classroom. So today I got the opportunity to come in and see you to do a review over your formative assessment. So you want to catch me up on the parts that I missed?
Okay, so what you missed was we reviewed the theme and what we did. So I put up on the screen the notes that the kids had written. So we went through the notes again. We went step by step. I had them repeat after me everything on the board. I asked specific questions to the students based as what is a theme, give me a synonym to a theme. We went over different types of common themes as well, and we went over that now that we're in 5th grade, most of our themes are going to be implied. So what we do, so we look at what the characters say, do, think, or feel, and then I handed out the questions for them to answer, and I told them that if they got 2 check marks on the questions, then they could move on to their independent work with the anthology. and I explained the instructions for the anthology. We put up our dividers, and the students went ahead and answered their 2 questions. I went around and didn't help them. I made sure that they worked on their own. I went through it, and I gave them 2 check marks, and they were able to move on. Once I went through the whole class, I realized only about 5 kids got 2 check marks. So instead of pulling, I had those kids sit on the kidney table and work on their own on the anthology, and then I stayed with the rest of the class, and that's when you started to walk in, which is when we started to debrief the questions to see what they did wrong.
Okay. So one of the things that you said that I'm very happy of is that you said you gave the kids the questions and you let them complete it on their own, which was contrary to what happened initially when you did it, where the students were provided assistance with completing it as you saw that they needed it. So I'm happy to see that you were able to release them and not help them with getting it done. So that's good. So what I noticed when you were debriefing with the test or debriefing with their formative assessment is that you were doing most of the talking. So when I jumped in and I said that let the students provide you with their thinking on how they came up with their answer, because as you were debriefing, you didn't get the opportunity to hear why they came up with the incorrect answers. So you were guiding them through how to get to the right answer, but I think it's just as important to hear, well, how is it that they came up with the wrong answer? So in getting their feedback will help you to understand where their thinking is, so the misconceptions that they might have, then you're able to now help them to see why they made that mistake, so that when they have to do it again, they will make those same mistakes. No. All right, so let's take a look at some of the products that you have.
Okay, so these are the actual questions, which I separated them with 2 check marks. These are 2 X's, and then some that got 1 right, 1 wrong. Okay. They're in the middle. So these are the kids that moved on their own to the anthology. Okay. And I brought their journals as well, so we could always look at them because they've done all 3 assessments. Okay. So we can see how they did through them.
So you had the students that demonstrated that they had mastery of the skills taught. You had them to move on to the anthology, and then you had them to respond to similar questions or the same questions as they had worked on previously?
Yeah, so they filled out the graphic organizer that we did together with the teaching with the RWW. Okay. They did the same exact graphic organizer, but for the anthology.
And why I say that is because if you look at the number of students that were able to successfully do it on their own,
it's low. Yeah.
Compared to those that still need support. Yeah. So if you ignore that fact, then you got a lot of students that you're moving forward, or that you're moving forward and they're not ready. So you wouldn't be surprised about what the scores will look like when you give the assessment.
Yeah, it's going to be the same kids getting in, these almost getting it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
So you want to be able to see that what you were able to review through your think alouds and your explanation, and with the students being able to provide their thinking, now that those questions and concerns that they had, you were able to now clear them up for them. You want to see whether they're going to get different results based on the support that you've been able to give them. But the evidence shows that he's demonstrated mastery of that standard. So
yeah, and Diana, she keeps summarizing. And I got it right.
And she picks the distracting answers.
There's no distracting answer. I got to talk to her about that.
Yeah. So it looks like, for the most part, you're seeing movement in a positive direction. Okay. Right. So this entire process, what would you say is an area of strength for you? Or what's a takeaway from what you've done?
A takeaway?
Yeah.
I guess this tracking, I would say that this understanding, really, like you said about Frank, like really understanding the data and having true data is what I'm taking away from this. Because if not, I would have thought some of these kids didn't get it when they really did, and it really helped me identify who needs help and doesn't need help. So the tracking definitely is what I'm taking away the most from this.
Okay. So is there any area that you felt would be an area of improvement, or an area that you would need to further develop or need further support with?
With double planning?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I would say is sometimes I forget when I release them to go and check their stuff right away. I have to remember to stop and, actually write on there and give them feedback in their journal. Sometimes I forget to do that, and then they change answers and I don't know. So it's the instant feedback.
So the reason why I developed the post-observation form is because it helps me to organize my thoughts and ideas. I don't want to go in and have no idea what to discuss, so it helps me to keep in line my thinking. And then at the same time, I often reflect on what I have to reflect on as a coach. There are certain things that I have to think about post coaching cycle that I want the teacher to be able to reflect on as well. So if I'm thinking about what worked, what didn't work, well, I want her to think about what worked and what didn't work. And then moving forward, what is it that we would like to work on? And in that way, teachers are taking ownership of their own learning. It's not me going in as a coach and saying, okay, this is what I want you to do and this is what I think you should work on. No, it's you saying what you believe you did well. What is it that you believe you want to strengthen and where you want to go next? And I think that's important for teachers to buy into what you do as a coach, but buy into themselves.